when we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders. We have no argument with the people of Iraq. Indeed, for the innocents caught in this conflict, I pray for their safety. Our goal is not the conquest of Iraq. It is the liberation of Kuwait. It is my hope that somehow the Iraqi people can, even now, convince their dictator that he must lay down his arms, leave Kuwait, and let Iraq itself rejoin the family of peace-loving nations. Thomas Paine wrote many years ago, "These are the times that try men's souls." Those well-known words are so very true today. But even as planes of the multinational forces attack Iraq, I prefer to think of peace, not war. I am convinced not only that we will prevail, but that out of the horror of combat will come the recognition that no nation can stand against a world united. No nation will be permitted to brutally assault its neighbor. No president can easily commit our sons and daughters to war. They are the nation's finest. Ours is an all-volunteer force, magnificently trained, highly motivated. The troops know why they're there, and listen to what they say, for they've said it better than any president or prime minister ever could. Listen to Hollywood Huddleston, Marine Lance Corporal. He says, "Let's free these people so we can go home and be free again." And he's right. The terrible crimes and tortures committed by Saddam's henchmen against the innocent people of Kuwait are an affront to mankind and a challenge to the freedom of all. Listen to one of our great officers out there, Marine Lieutenant General Walter Boomer. He said, "There are things worth fighting for. A world in which brutality and lawlessness are allowed to go unchecked isn't the kind of world we're going to want to live in." Listen to Master Sergeant J.P. Kendall of the 82nd Airborne. "We're here for more than just the price of a gallon of gas. What we're doing is going to chart the future of the world for the next 100 years. It's better to deal with this guy now than 5 years from now." And finally, we should all sit up and listen to Jackie Jones, an Army lieutenant, when she says, "If we let him get away with this, who knows what's going to be next?" I've called upon Hollywood and Walter and JP and Jackie and all their courageous comrades in arms to do what must be done. Tonight, America and the world are deeply grateful to them and to their families. And let me say to everyone listening or watching tonight, when the troops we've sent in finish their work, I'm determined to bring them home as soon as possible. Tonight, as our forces fight, they and their families are in our prayers. May God bless each and every one of them and the coalition forces at our side in the Gulf, and may He continue to bless our nation, the United States of America.
President George Bush speaking directly to the nation from the Oval Office tonight about Operation Desert Shield, now converted to Operation Desert Storm, as he described it. First of all, the military details as he shared them with us. The ground forces have not yet been engaged, but there is no indication that they won't be. The President talking about the success of American troops as they go forward in this operation. Everything has gone according to plan so far. The objectives, he said, are clear from a military and from a political point of view. Saddam Hussein must be persuaded to get out of Kuwait. He said only force now will make him leave. He has turned down every other diplomatic and political opportunity to get out of there. He wants to take every step conceivably possible so that they can get this over with as quickly as possible. The President tonight quoting Thomas Paine and American forces on the ground there, including American women, and there is a very substantial contingent of them as well.
The death of 500,000 people. That's a 500,000 mass murderer we've run to his rat hole like a Hitler bunker, and I hope he faces a war crimes trial, or I hope he took the first bomb on the bridge of his nose this very night.
Senator Dodd, very quickly, we don't have long left here. Is it your expectation, let's say that the Congressman is right, that it's all over very shortly. Can the United States, and will the United States at that time, in effect, withdraw from the Persian Gulf area?
Well, I don't think immediately, no. I suspect we'll be there for some time, at least to some presence, certainly not at the levels we're there now. But I suspect there'll be a military presence there, and rightfully so. You may have a shifting in the balance of power here. The prospect of having the Iranians and Assad and Syria being dominant influences in the region is not exactly a prospect I look forward to. So I think a continued military presence there, a de-escalated one, but a continuing presence, will be absolutely essential for a foreseeable future.
Dan, with the holy days coming, both the Ramadan and then the holiest of all days, the last day of Ramadan when they stop the fast, the Hajj coming up, we have 6 carriers, and so far you haven't reported, nor has anyone, that we have used those excellent 6 air groups. I have a nephew, Don Dornan Jr., that's in combat right now in a Hawkeye AWACS. He may not have any enemy assets to target his F-14s and F-18s and A-6s against. Leave the 6 carriers there and get our men out of the ground, except our trainers and advisors who have been there the better part of 2 decades anyway, and then we won't have any cultural problems.
Congressman Dornan, Senator Dodd, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Dan.
The news that war had broken out in the Persian Gulf came after Wall Street had closed for the day. First indications of how world financial markets might react to the war are now coming in from Japan, where Thursday trading is now openly underway in Tokyo. CBS News business correspondent Ray Brady is monitoring the ups and downs of the Tokyo Exchange.
It's the first major stock market to open since the bombing of Iraq. And when the news of the airstrike moved over the wires, the Nikkei average, the Dow Jones average of Japan, dropped sharply, falling more than 300 points in early trading. Later, though, trading steadied in Japan, and prices now are up 433 points, the Nikkei standing at 22,875. That's a fairly good rise, and it comes even though Japan is heavily dependent on the Gulf for oil. Germany gets about 11% of its oil from the Gulf, and the U.S. 12%. But about 65% of all of Japan's oil comes from the Gulf. Japan supports the Allied effort in the Gulf, but Japanese investors no longer worry about oil shock. The Japanese have become far more energy efficient, and they've learned to use diplomacy to get the resources they need. Even at the height of the Iran-Iraq war, Japanese tankers moved easily in and out of the Gulf. President Bush, as you've heard, has authorized the removal of oil from this nation's strategic petroleum reserve. The hope is that that'll keep the price from rising sky high, but nobody knows if that will work at all until the oil markets open tomorrow morning. Dan?
Ray, and the price of oil with that cash backroom trading after the official open markets went up to above $40, but the last report was down to about $35 a barrel.
Yes, that's because nobody really knows what's going to happen until those markets open tomorrow. I think perhaps the president's announcement that they would take oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve has helped to back it off. But, you know, everything is so new right now. People are reacting in a kind of panic. So when you see these big jumps initially, you can't really go by them. You don't know what's going to happen until the market opens.
Watching those Tokyo markets are a reminder that the Germans and the Japanese will benefit tremendously if the United States succeeds in protecting the Persian Gulf oil fields. Thanks, Ray Brady. Continuing our CBS News coverage of war in the Gulf, these are among the headlines of the hour. Saddam Hussein lashes out at President Bush. That was monitored on Baghdad radio. No reports of any U.S. air losses. That doesn't necessarily mean there haven't been any. None have been reported.